Hello and welcome to episode 10 of this Let's Play Factorio Space Exploration series. In the last episode, we built this pretty standard, substantial, significant base on this planet, which is going to be producing primarily at this point cryonite rods and ice. I know I've built a whole lot of other stuff for plans for the future, but that's really been the priority, is those two things. And moving towards the next priority, which would be iron ingots, and those things should hopefully get me a long way towards the next stage of science, which is really what I'm aiming at. And the last remaining part of that puzzle is uranium. Don't quite know how I'm going to solve that problem yet. I might just deliver a single rocket load's worth of uranium from Novice. I don't really want to extract any uranium from Novice. I spent a lot of time on that base building up the uranium that I have. I want as much as I have. I want as much as I can in that base. So I don't really want to extract all of it. I just want to. So I might do one rocket load just to be able to get me to the next batch of science, and then I'll have to think about where I'm going to get that uranium from future-wise. But in terms of this episode, what I really want to get on with is I want to go back to Mariel, which is the planet that's producing my vulcanite. I need to kind of demolish these two control panels and rebuild them in the kind of format which I'm building now, which is these ones, which are a much more general approach, which will deliver and transport to multiple destinations. So one ingredient to multiple destinations. That's the goal here. So I'm going to whiz back to Mariel. I'm also going to. There's a whole lot of ice. Mariel's not working at the moment, and I need that vulcanite. So I have been building up some ice on Novice to take with me when I go back to do this. Let's see if we can get there. So I can switch the base on just for the time being, because it's absolutely crippling not having any vulcanite. So this should get me to some point in the future where I have rockets of ice. That's the plan, and let's get on with it. So, this rocket, this kind of standard rocket approach I've built here that I'm copying across from Maliga, wherever it is I'm making the ice. This has kind of unlocked something in my brain. Up until this point, every control panel has kind of been bespoke. It's been dealing with a single resource and a single destination. And it's been an exploratory process, and I've talked about the creativity of that, and my process of going through this. But over time, it's been very, very, very hard work, and I think that was coming to bear. Like every time I was having to build a rocket silo or anything to do with any of this rocket stuff, it was just a pit in the bottom of my stomach. I was like, oh god, I'm gonna have to do another one. Oh, it's another one. I have to do another one, and building this, I've just come over here and I've knocked down my previous control panel that I had, plonked 4 of these down, and now I've suddenly got like this enormous capability for moving stuff around in the blink of an eye, and I didn't have to even think about it. I just had, because I already had the I know this is probably something that is obvious, you know, building a standard rocket approach, you know, a blueprint that I can copy, that's really just probably something that everyone does. Probably not to the same extent that I'm doing, with all the lights and everything, which is probably unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. It's really just for my own vanity. But building a blueprint, that's just very, very obvious. And I'm certain that you're sitting there, you've been sitting there for some time thinking, oh, this is all just exactly as I've just been saying. It all just looks like an enormous amount of work. Why are you doing this to yourself, Bigfoot? And to be honest, that's probably where a lot of these comments have come from, as you can name these landing pads all the same thing and just deal with them with a single rocket. You've probably been watching me and going, what are you doing to yourself, Bigfoot? But, from my perspective, I don't think I could have arrived where I am now without doing that. That created. I've explored a lot of different options, a lot of different ways, a lot of different circuit networks. In this process, and I don't think I would have come up with such a precise, concise. In comparison to all the other control panels that I've built, these 4 ones in front of me, these are relatively. They're very quite small and concise. They're only really displaying the information that I want. I've tried a lot of different ways in order to get here. So, I don't know. For me, this is just the creative process in action. I've come up with a final thing, but in order to get to that final thing, I've had to build a whole lot of things that weren't perfect. I've had to destroy a few of them along the way. That's just the creative process. Anyway, so now that I have it, now that I have this blueprint, my anxiety levels have dropped. Now I'm like, oh, I can now just have instant rocket capability. I don't have to think about it. It's just excellent. For my kind of peace of mind, just brilliant. Anyway, so to kind of go through, I'm trying to, so that same mindset. Imagine, you've had this revelatory moment and, it's like, oh, this is good. How can I have more of this? That's kind of how I'm trying to approach these new landing pads, because what we have here is a landing pad. I've got a blueprint of it here, with 2 of them actually, which are the exact same shape and size as these things. So anywhere where I go that I have some of these, I can put these in the exact same gap. I can swap these out. I can demolish this. And I can put one of these here. Yes, okay. So I have kind of thought about the fact that this isn't coming, all of these conveyor belts coming down, but I can switch all of these around and bring them up. It is reflectable. That's really good. I think I might need to build a new one of these so that this could potentially go on the other side. Can I reflect this? How good does that work? Nope. That's not too bad. Well, look at that. I could just do that. So anyway, that's how I've approached this block with the landing pads. Is let's build a block that fits in with the other blocks, because that's a good way of building. It's just going to be really easy. So this is exciting to me, and in my mind, I'm still not done with the creative process. There might be other orientations, other proportions of these blocks that I need depending on the factory that I'm building on. I might end up in a situation where this is too big and unwieldy, and I'm thinking I might need to rebuild one of these with this portion next door to this portion, so it comes kind of a squarish rectangle rather than a long thin column. But I mean, I think I'll probably address that problem as and when that issue arises. I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm kind of in my mode now. So I've got my landing pads. I've got my ice set up. I do need to route that through, but that's not going to take very long. Oh, that was what I was going to talk about. So, train fuel. The bane of my life at the moment. When I arrived at this planet, just before I was going to deal with all this control panel stuff, I obviously had to deal with trains because they'd run out of fuel. So I had to run around and deliver some of the fuel. And I'd only brought, I brought quite a lot of fuel from Novice to here when I was building the base. I brought a whole lot of stuff. Every time I went back to pick up something else, I would bring something with me. And I built up quite a big store of fuel for the trains, and I'd run out. Now that I'm dealing with, I've run out of train fuel. So either I was like, either I go back to Novice, or we think of some new solution for train fuel, because it's ruining my enjoyment. It's genuinely it's starting to ruin my enjoyment. So obviously the solution is a conveyor belt for train fuel that now runs around all my train stations delivering fuel. But in doing that, I kind of was like, this base, and then to be honest, it's probably not the only place I'm gonna have this problem. Sand, stone, and iron ore. I'm gonna have a problem with all three of those things. You know, I'm making stone and iron ore. I'm getting stone and iron ore out of the processing of the uranium, and then when I get K2SE, I think I get stone out of that process as well. And then any of these ore mining operations all seem to generate a significant amount of sand. And I've said it before, I don't want to put that sand into landfill. So if I'm dealing with train fuel, and you know, I'm not going to make train fuel, I'm going to make rocket fuel, because I'm making rocket fuel on all the planets anyway for these rockets. So I may as well fuel the trains with that rocket fuel. That just makes the most amount of sense to me. So if I'm making all this rocket fuel, and I've got all this sand and iron ore, well, let's put all of that sand and iron ore into rocket fuel. So let's just take you around the process from start to finish. So this is where we were originally, and then I've kind of copied. This is what the rocket fuel setup that I've just built on Maliga, where I'm making the ice and the cryonite, and I've just copied it straight across. And I'm going to sink all of my sand and stone, excess sand and stone, into this. And it has the added benefit of using that iron ore as well. So all of my excess products are being dealt with by this one process. So, you know, if I have enough rock, if I'm not generating excess sand or stone, then I will just produce rocket fuel from the vulcanite, which is the process that I already have. You know, it's probably the simplest and easiest. And if and when we generate more sand and stone, that will go here, make rocket fuel, and that will feed its way through with priority. So any rocket fuel that comes from here. So I now feel like I've got an infinite sink of sand and stone and iron ore for every base now, because now I'm going to have to feed every train network with rocket fuel via conveyor belt, which is what I'm doing here, which is what I've had to set up, and is now probably where I'm going to need to go on every planet, every base that I go to. This is now sod the requester chests. Genuinely, sod the requester chests. Let's deal with this properly. Let's, you know, I've talked about it, I've whinged about it. So next time I'm on Novice, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be moving some rocket fuel towards my train stations on conveyor belts. Sod the requester chests. I'm going to do it everywhere now. It's just going to be, to be honest, I'm going to try and find a more elegant way of doing it. I still haven't quite come up with a nice train station that I'm happy with these loaders yet. I'm still playing around with different configurations. Anyway, this is all by the by. We're talking about a lot of stuff here. Anyway, control panels. So, future stuff. I want to go back to Maliga. I want to deliver some ice to here so that I've got some proper supply of the stuff. We do have, you know, it wasn't an insignificant amount of ice that I brought with me. But as before, this is going to run out at some point. I feel like that's gone down very quick. I thought, what did I bring? I think I brought about 80k with me. 3.5, 10, 20. Maybe used about 80% of that already. Anyway, okay, so that's the plan. Let's get over to Maliga. Let's deliver some ice. I was almost going to say it. Ice, baby. No, I did say it. moment of glory is here. Finally. I'm a happy man, happy chap. You know, this has been a long time coming. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. You know, we might have K2SE. We don't quite have the power that I want, that this thing's going to lead to, because what we have now is a passage of time that needs to happen in order for this thing to do its thing and to build up all of the right levels of stuff. You know, all of the uranium, all of that stuff. I've just been looking at this microphone for so long because right now, you know, whenever I do these kind of chats on the mic, I kind of sit down and I think, what am I going to say? And I've been sitting down trying to think about what I was going to say, and I've got nothing, absolutely nothing. And the reason is because I've been building up to this moment. I've been just so bloody minorly focused on this one thing that I haven't at all considered where I want to go after this. I'm just kind of in a moment of contemplation, you know. I'm just kind of living in the moment, enjoying the moment of reaching this point. But anyway. What I really need to do at this moment in time, what I'm doing at this moment in time, is just keeping an eye on these processes to make sure that they're doing their thing. I mean, this is the one on novice. This one's going to be here for a very long time before I get anything out of it, because we've got about 1 million U238 here, and so in order to get the right ratios, I need to generate about 200,000 of U235, and that's a long time it's going to take to get there. And those ratios will change. You know, we're going to use this U238 along the way. This does calculate the ratio. So whenever it does reach that right ratio, it will stop, and then it will feed it to the power. But this one's going to take probably the longest. If we have a look at the other ones, where are we? Here we are. This is Mariel. This is the one that I set up most recently. So this is probably the one that's going to get going first. You know, it's got the least amount of U238 in the system. How much have we got? 58k. So we only need about 10 or 15 U235. This probably get going quickest. And then we've got the one on Mariel, which is dealing with... I don't have that set up. Where are we? There you are. This one here. This one's probably going to take a little while longer. And this is probably the most important one, to be honest, because the day-night cycle on this planet is punishing. I haven't got anywhere in the right setup for power. I don't think I've got enough. I haven't got enough solar panels, and I've got maybe about a third of the amount of accumulators I need. I just can't be bothered to deal with solar because it's just one of these K2SE. So we're in a point now where we need to wait for this to do its thing. I'm just going to spend a little while I'm contemplating what my next step is. I'm just going to spend a little while watching them, making sure that they're correct, making sure that there's no bottlenecks and all of the belts are doing the right thing that they should be doing. Because if I'm going to leave it alone, I want it to be running right. You know, I don't want it to be having a problem and then coming back 10, 15 hours later and going, oh, why didn't I fix that 10, 15 hours ago? That would have been really useful. Yeah, so I'm just spending a little bit of time just watching it, making sure it's doing its thing. The next thing on the list, immediate term, is probably Immersite. If we have a look at the platform, have I got that one here? Nope. I've got the next science set up, this orange science, optimization science, and what it's missing is the Immersite plate and the Immersite crystal. And I'm not actually, that shouldn't actually take too long. I don't think it should. I've also got to set up a fair amount of factory production and stuff, but you know, the time in this game with these mods seems to be setting up the links between the factories. And I feel like I've got most of that right. So if I can just build that in, and then I've got access to this next science pack, and that should give me a whole medley of new toys and gizmos. You know, I've been living with my current power armor for quite some time. It would be really nice to have some proper jetpacks, exoskeletons, all those fancy gadgets and gizmos in my armor would be really nice, because it's been a couple hundred hours of running on. Anyway. I'm used to, at this point of the game, having a whole load more toys and having a load of more kind of satisfaction, feedback from the game. The game is giving me things. I'm just... So I want some... I'm pretty sure... I'm hopeful that with these... I haven't really looked at the science again, but I'm hopeful that with these 3 science packs, I should get access to some new toys that I can... And maybe that'll take some time up while I ponder my next moves. But I think this is that will be the next thing I need to do. Immersite, and then I need to come back here, and I need to start thinking about what my next steps are. Well, I need to think about that sooner than that, actually, to be honest. What have we got down here? We've got Vitamelange. I've heard people talk about that. Don't really know anything about it. Iridium material. Oh God. I need to peruse this stuff. Beryllium. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm going to think about Kovarex, and I'm going to think about Immersite. And then we're going to reconvene some point, probably not too far in the future, when I've got a plan. That's the plan. Well now, that block of factory just absolutely did not want to go in that space whatsoever. Just not interested. I've had to really move and fudge and sneak some space to get it in there. Anyway, it's also really, really hungry. It's taken 4 rocket loads in no time at all, and just anyway, Immersite. Anyway, so I've been deep in thought about what is my next plan. You know, where do I want to go from here? What's the next thing that I want to do? And in order to get to the end point, we need to start off in quite a strange place. Bear with me. It's sand. We are making a lot of sand. Now, okay, so let me start at the beginning. Someone pointed out in the comments of the last video, I mentioned in that last video that I was thinking about putting Immersite ore onto a cargo rocket and then delivering that Immersite ore back to here, Novice, so that I could process the Immersite. And he pointed out in the comments that it was probably sensible to look at the crushed Immersite instead, because that might be better because of stack sizes and whatnot. And I looked at it, and he was absolutely right. Because of the way it works, we put in what, 2 Immersite ore, and we get 1 sand and 1 Immersite, 1 crushed Immersite. And the crushed Immersite has a stack size of 100, and the Immersite ore has a stack size of 50. So by crushing it on site before we deliver it here, we actually get 4 times the amount of bang for our buck on a rocket. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But in doing that, we generate an enormous amount of sand, just an absolute boatload of the stuff. And I've run my numbers. Oh, hold on a second. Have I got it here? I have got it here. I've run some calculations. So I wanted to know, the question that I've got is, we're going to be making a whole load of sand in order to deliver this rocket, but we're also going to be using a whole load of sand in rocket fuel. So how much sand do I make versus how much sand do I use with one of these rockets, with this crushed, with the pre-crushed immersite? And the answer that I got to was that one rocket fuel is 53.5 sand, and one rocket is 47,401 sand in order to get the right amount of rocket fuel. And we generate that in that rocket by crushing the immersite 50,000 sand. So we have a deficit of about, what, 2,600 sand? So every rocket that I deliver with this immersite, I'm going to be left over with 2,600 sand, which is 2,600 divided by 53.5. 48 and 50 rocket fuel, that's surplus. So, I need to use rocket fuel. And this is before all of the sand and the stone and the iron ore that I'm producing from the processing of the uranium and of the vulcanite. You know, this sandstone stuff, at the beginning of this episode, I feel like I was just uncovering the sand and the stone problem, and now I'm fully on board and I understand what's going on. I need to spend a whole load of rocket fuel. That's where I am. I've got so much. I'm going to have see, all of you are probably turning all of this stuff into landfill, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to turn it into rocket fuel instead. And instead of blowing it up, I'm just going to maybe have superfluous rockets. You know, rockets that maybe I don't, you know, I can, if you have more rockets launching, then I will use that rocket fuel. Look, this is a big old rant. So here we are, Mariel. This is probably the biggest problem because we're making a lot of stone and sand, is it? Or is it just stone from vulcanite? So this is a bigger issue than the planet that's making the cryonite and the ice. I've doubled the rocket fuel, and I've got, so this was twice the size now that's turning that sand and stone into rocket fuel, and I'm storing it all. So any surplus of rocket fuel is going to get stored here, and then any time a rocket launches, it's just going to withdraw it from here. And I've completely stopped any rocket fuel coming from any other process here and on Maliga, which is where I'm wearing the cryonite and the ice. I'm now solely going to be using rocket fuel from sand. That's what I'm going to be doing. So to get to the whole purpose of this spiel, the strategy was my plan. So I need to make these cargo rockets work. You know, if I can, the problem with this approach, with this using all this rocket fuel, is that I'm going to be burning through a heck of a lot of rocket parts. And those are going to be expensive, and more expensive than the rocket fuel. You know, it in a strategy sense, it's not worth launching those rockets just to burn the rocket fuel, because we're going to use, the rocket parts are more expensive. So they're actually quite important. So my strategy is to concentrate on the things, the cargo rocket multipliers, the things that are going to make those cargo rockets really, really, really effective. So that is my strategy. That's what I'm going to be aiming for. You know, future-wise, we're going to get access to other things. You know, we've got spaceships and we've got space elevators. But I think for the time being, for the systems I've already set up, I'm going to solely rely on the cargo rockets. And then when we get access to those things, if I set up other planets and other systems, then I will start looking at those other techs. But I think the systems that I have at the moment, the ones that currently rely on cargo rockets, that will be, unless something radical changes, you know, so I make some mistake or something, you know, the systems that I already have that rely on cargo rockets are going to be using cargo rockets to the end. So in the immediate term, that is my priority. That's to get the cargo rocket multipliers. So we've got several of them, I seem to think. We've got cargo rocket safety, reusability, and survivability. I think those are the three main ones. All of which require... Oh, no. No, that's right. Yeah, okay. I'm just getting worried here. All of them require this Astronomic Science Pack 1. That one science pack will get me all of those multipliers. So, that's the plan. It's just the Astrological Science Pack 1 at the moment. But... you know, outside of this game, I have been seeing and talking to people who play these mods. and I've exposed myself to the potential future stuff that at this point I'm just going to come. I've seen factories now who have got a lot further in the game, and I've seen enough to know that the direction that I need to be taking with this. So there's a chance that I'll take on this first astrological science pack, and I will continue that to the end, and I'll get 2, 3, and 4, and that's the first kind of grouping of this science that I'm going to do. And then once I've got those 4, I'll move on to another tier, another set of those 4. That's kind of where my mind is at the moment. But you know, I don't really know. I really just want to get here, so I can get those rocket stuff. Because at the moment, again, this is another thing that I don't know whether I've said before. None of these rocket launchers at the moment are automated. They're all controlled by me. I had a few rockets at the beginning I set up to be automated, and they crash landed, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea of setting that automated a rocket to crash and then me not notice it for however long. So I've just been launching the rockets myself. But once I've got those, I think I can automate the stuff. Once I've got those multipliers so that all the rockets are working perfectly and I get all of the stuff back again, I think that will work really, really well. So that's the immediate plan. That's what I'm going to be doing. I don't really know what's required yet, but that is the plan. Okay, I am pretty sure that I've got Astrological Science Pack 1, Tier 1 sorted here. Pretty sure. I'm almost certain I've got it sorted. I'm just jesting. Now, last time I spent any significant amount of time up here on my platform, building mostly the start of the science, right back at the beginning, because that was when I was mostly talking about the stuff I'm about to talk about, a lot of people in the comments pointed out that it's not really possible to build in SpaceX with complete consideration of all of the things in the future. Now, I am kind of paraphrasing a little bit. What I mean to say is that they were telling me that I would need to rebuild and refactor something at some point or other. And at the time, I didn't really respond to them. I back myself to do this. Like, that's really just the crux of it. You know, I have a particular aesthetic that I'm looking for, and I will spend as long as it takes to get that aesthetic right. And I back myself to see as much of this future stuff that's relevant as much as possible. You know, I've got these mods. I mean, to be honest, that is one thing I am worrying about DLC future-wise is, you know, day one I'm going to be opening up the mods, and I'm not going to have any mods. They're all going to be balked. So I'm going to be a little bit... Anyway, that's kind of by the by. I have my mods, and they help me to see what's coming in the future. And, you know, I kind of back myself to make sure that I get it right. Now, that's all well and good. But, you know, there's probably a fair amount of truth in what they're telling me. You know, they're not telling me that for no reason at all. If you're one of these people, I'm sure that this is something you've experienced, and that's why you're saying it. You know, I wouldn't imagine that it was any other way. But I like to think that I can back myself. However, In building this first kind of tier of this science pack, I have started to glimpse the future of what it is that I think that you're telling me about, because there are a few recipes in here which have a few different variants of how we can make them, and I haven't looked into it in too much detail. You know, there's only so much detail further, so far into the future I can look with this stuff before I start losing my mind. So I'm thinking that those other further recipes, those more difficult recipes that we get access to in the future, they're going to be more efficient and they're going to be able to pump out much greater output. So those are the things that we want to be able to use. But obviously we don't have access to them now. And I think this is where the kind of the rebuilding comes in, because what it feels like to me, now this is just me talking off the cuff of what I can see in the kind of the recipe tree, is that if we just take these 4 tiers of this astrological science pack just as an example, it feels to me like we can produce these 3 or 4 ingredients with a very, very simple recipe at this point, and it won't be very efficient, and it will produce a very, very small amount of science. But once we've got to tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 done, we can combine the outputs of those things, and we can demolish a certain amount of the processes in here and group them together so that we get a much more efficient process. And then it feels like once we've got that grouping of 4, those 4 tiers all grouped together producing a really nice efficient process, we then have to go and do the same again with another batch of science, and there's 4 batches of science, and then once we've got those 4 batches of science, we need to rebuild almost all again and combine all of those together into one super effective, super efficient process. That's what the recipe tree looks like to me from at this point in time. And although I'm not going to build with that in mind, I'm not going to build that factory, you know, I don't even know what it looks like at this point in time. I am going to build the factory with that in mind. You know, it's going to be in the back of my thought process as to how I lay this down. And what I mean by that is that there's certain parts of this factory which I will accept that need to be rebuilt, and there are certain parts which I don't want to be rebuilt. So if we go through some simple processes, and then I'll go through some more complicated ones. Now, with this kind of superfluid, this minus 100 degrees, I think, yeah, we get access to a later process that's more efficient, that uses cryonite slush. And I want access to that thing. And I have cryonite up here, so why not make that slush up here and have that process available to us? So I've got a thing here making cryonite slush that needs sulfuric acid. We've got sulfur, iron plate and water up here, so why not make that sulfuric acid up here? So I've got these 2 things here which I'm not going to use for potentially quite some time, but I know I will need it in the future. And then if I need other places that need this cryonite slush, then I've got it here. Now it is just 1 unit, but I can jazz this up with some modules when I get there. You know, in terms of modules, I am only making up to tier 3 at the moment. I would quite like to take on the further tiers, but that's kind of in the back of my mind at the moment. So I can jazz it up with those tier 3 modules if it comes to it, and if I need more than that, then I suppose I'm a little bit screwed. But that's kind of where my mind is. I wanted to build it in to the process here so that I've got it when I need it. And in terms of those 3 or 4 recipes, those 3 or 4 key recipes that is going to change. Now the way that I see it is that it's mostly these ones. So it's the catalog, this kind of jazzy one which kind of mixes them all together. Significant data. This looks like a pretty important one. And then these kind of blue blobby things. These kind of 3 or 4 processes here look like the ones that I'm going to need to upgrade at some point in time. This is the science block, so I don't anticipate this changing. That doesn't look like it changes. It just uses these ingredients, but more efficient versions of those ingredients. So my mind, I need, you know, this block is dealing with just tier 1. In my mind, I need 4 of these kind of blocks. 1 here, 1 here, and then another 2, the same again, just laid down next to each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect them. So in this kind of block, what I've got is the processes I don't want to change over on the right hand side, and the processes that I kind of don't mind changing on the left hand side, this grouping here. This block is fixed, but these 4 blocks here, these might change. So on this new block that I'm going to build over here that deals with tier 2, I'm going to reflect that. I'm going to put the science block here, and then I'm going to put the immovable objects over on the other side of the center line of the bus, and then I'm going to put the variable objects, the things that might change, in this space here, so that if I come to the point in the future where I need to knock all this down, I've got all of this space. I can join those two blocks together and use that space as one big giant space to upgrade all of these processes for whatever I might need in there. And then in addition to that, I'm going to leave a blank space in between the two. So if there's some kind of ingredient or something that I've missed, some mistake, then I can at least try, I've got an avenue to get it in there and feed whatever, because there might not be space in this bus. You know, I have purposely left gaps, like you can see these gaps here. That's because I just don't care. This is probably going to be knocked down, and these spaces, this is probably just going to come in useful later on. So that's kind of where my mind is with regards to kind of future stuff. You know, I'm trying to build the factory in a way that allows me to knock it down and rebuild it without too much fuss. You know, it's still going to be painful. I'm not going to deny that, but it is at least going to be possible. And that's really all I care about at this moment in time. And I have had a look at so, okay, let's carry on the story. I'm looking at all of the sciences now. I'm not looking at Vitamelange. I'm leaving that one till last. So I've got all of the sciences here planned out. I'm looking at the ingredients and the processes and the materials that they need. I'm tracking them all through now. So I shouldn't miss anything, you know, other than potentially Vitamelange, but I'm not anticipating that in requiring all that many ingredients from this. I'm anticipating that in a whole load of ingredients from another base on another planet. I suppose I should probably look at that at some point in time. It's probably something I should look at. So anyway, that's where my mind is with regards to, you know, future expansion. And with regards to the things I've already built over here, I'm pretty sure that what I've built over here is going to have a hell of a lot of application going forward. I don't think I'm going to need to knock it down. I might need to add to it. You know, this is my kind of spaghetti bus now. It's kind of grown a little bit. These are all the ingredients that I've worked out that I need from this tree. Like, I've tried to pick out the ingredients that I'm already bringing into the base and feed them back into the main bus in some way that's at least a little bit elegant and makes it not look like a complete afterthought, which is exactly what it was. But these processes that exist, you know, on one side of this spaghetti bus, I can just add more. I can just extend these conveyor belts and these pipes over here if I need to. Same with these. I'm pretty sure I said this at the time. Yeah, so I've got, you know, future expansion. I've still got that in mind. I'm pretty sure that what I've got here is good. And what I need to do now is I need to start building all of the things that I need for this. And the things that I don't have at the moment that I need are iridium and beryllium. Both of those things I don't have. I've built what was it built? I think I've built the beryllium part on my ice planet. I can never find these damn things. Where's my Lego? I've got this block here is for beryllium. It's some sort of processing. It's some sort of capacity. So I'm going to feed it with some beryllium ore, and then we'll see what happens. I just got to switch it on really and set up some train stations. With iridium, I don't have anything for that. That probably needs to be built on my vulcanite planet. I don't think I've got that set up either. I think the iridium's going to come from here. I just need to build the part of the factory that's going to do the job and set up the train stations for it. So once I've got those two things, I should have access to this astrological science pack, and then I should be able to research those 3 multipliers, those 3 tiers of the cargo rockets that I want. And then from there, I suppose it's just a case of tackling each of these astrological science packs, each of these tiers in a row until I reach the end of that. I suppose that's probably the process. That's probably the way we're going to go. It feels like we're making some real progress. You know, I suppose striking vulcanite off the list, that was a nice thing to get done. You know, we're building towards that for quite some time. Yeah, it feels like we're getting somewhere. It feels like we're really kind of getting somewhere. Anyway, that's probably enough. That is not just probably, that is absolutely enough for this episode. We got a lot done, and we're still got a lot to do. So, I hope it's been good. Till next time.